once exposed to the elements, quickly crumbled and lost their value. No more would Gorka Bilbao pass them by, and on that afternoon he became a fossil hunter. 10 years later now, he was back along the John Day River. His shoulders were hunched and burly from a decade of hacking at the ground with a pick, and his tangled beard was flecked with seeds from the thickets that lined the river. It was the last week of September. Mist hid the canyon walls, although a pale sun kept trying to break through. The unseasonable chill had made Bilbao take out his moth-eaten army overcoat and mittens with the fingertips cut off so he could still pick up fine bones. Soon it would be winter. This was a cold desert. Blizzards howled down the canyons. Ice fogs stole in during the night and left diamonds on the brush when the heatless sun came out at dawn. It would be nice to hole up in his cabin in the Ochako Mountains during the bad months, to do nothing but drink. But he always seemed to need the cash for more fossils and bones. Bilbao suddenly halted. "Here we go," he whispered to himself. "Here we go now." At the foot of the bank lay a fossil fragment shaped like an oyster cracker. He recognized it right off. A scale from the shell of a giant turtle that had swum the vast inland lake that had once covered this now parched country. Bilbao looked over his shoulder for the U.S. Bureau of Land Management ranger who patrolled the area. The cop knew him, knew what he did for a living, and tried to keep an eye on Bilbao. But the desert was a big place. Seeing no one, Bilbao pocketed the piece of turtle shell. The turtle was an animal with a backbone, and the fossils of animals with backbones were off limits. Much of what Bilbao collected was against the law to possess, and nothing more so than the remains of human beings. But, oh, so valuable. Yet they had to be ancient. Very, very ancient. Once, on a moonless night, Bilbao had dug up a skeleton from the graveyard outside the old Bureau of Indian Affairs hospital in Warm Springs, then soaked the bones in potassium bichromate, hoping to pass them off as being 13,000 years old. That was the magic number to the college men. They didn't figure Indians had been in this country much longer than that. He tried to sell the remains to a professor, but the man knew at once they were fakes and refused to do further business with Bilbao. After that, the fossil hunter became more careful. College men knew bones like shepherds knew sheep. Still, there were ways to find the genuine article. Last autumn, the Army Corps of Engineers had finished the Clarno Reservoir. Bilbao could see the sweeping concrete face of the dam from where he stood. And 3 weeks ago, the spillway gates had been opened, disgorging a man-made flood. This was to help the Chinook salmon make their way up the canyon and over the dam's fish ladder to their spawning places. The torrent had chewed at the banks of the John Day, hopefully scouring out old bones like nuggets of gold. Last night, the gates had been shut, and the river had dropped again. These fluctuations were posted by the Army Corps of Engineers in the local newspaper, and Bilbao was usually first to search any canyon after a water release. A loud splash turned him around. A slab of bank had just peeled off into a muddy pool. Bilbao scurried over to this hump of dissolving earth and ran his practiced eye over the debris of centuries. There were flakes of stone left by Indian arrowhead makers. Charcoal from a brush fire that may have swept this way 1,000 years ago. Black pellets of sheep dung from a herd he himself might have run when he was younger. By noon, Bilbao had found the vertebra of an oreodont, a stubby-legged plant-eating creature. But nothing else. He waded across the shallow river. The water slopped into his boots and soaked his socks. He must get used to the cold again. He couldn't let the weather stop his searching, just as he'd never let it make him neglect his herd. At dusk, a chip of darkly soiled bone caught Bilbao's attention.